Hello friends, this video is on how to deal with complex or imaginary numbers. The very first question, we are going to evaluate the various powers of I. I is simply I squared is negative 1, I to the third power is negative I to the fourth power is positive 1, and I to the 17. I'm going to think of I to the 16 and I. And so my answer is going to be I. Okay, for number 2, this is I, this is negative 1, negative I, 1, and 33 is, oh, this is just as easy as the last one. 32 and I. So that is going to be just I. I hope they get a little more. Okay, so let's go I, negative 1, negative I, 1. This is I to the 20th, and I to the 2nd, and I to the 2nd is equal to negative 1. Alrighty, that's what I wanted to do. And this one is I, negative 1, negative I, 1, and that's 32 is divisible by 4, so that's just 1. Alrighty. All this is addition, so we're going to combine like terms, and this is a real number, and this is a real number, and this is a real number. So we're going to combine those, and 13 minus 9 is 4. And then we're going to combine the imaginary numbers, and 3i is imaginary, and negative 5i is imaginary, so that's 3 minus 5, which is negative 2i. Okay, on this one, the first thing we want to do is we want to get rid of the parentheses. So there's no reason for this to be in parentheses, so that needs to go away. I want the opposite of 6 and the opposite of negative 8i. And then I am going to combine my real numbers, which are 3 and negative 6, and 3 minus 6 is negative 3. And my imaginary numbers are negative 2i and positive 8i, which give me plus 6i. Alrighty, this is the distributive property, so I need to take 4 times 5, and I need to take 4 times 2i, and then I need to take negative 3i times 5, and then I need to take negative 3i times 2i. And once I get done with all that distributing, 4 times 5 is 20, 4 times 2i is 8i, negative 3i times 5 is negative 15i, and negative 3i times positive 2i is negative 6i squared. So this is 20, 8 minus 15 is negative 7i, and this is really negative 6 times negative 1, because ix squared is negative 1. So that really gives me 20 minus 7i plus 6, and then 20 is a real number and 6 is a real number, so final answer is 26 minus 7i. All right, number 8. Again, it's a distributive property. We're going to take this, and then we're going to multiply by this, and then we're going to multiply this, and then we're going to multiply by this. We do all that multiplication. Negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. Negative 8 times negative 7 is positive 56i. Negative 5i times 2 is negative 10i. Negative 5i times a negative 7i is a positive 35i to the second power. So what I really have here is negative 16. 56 take away 10 is 46i. And this is really 35 times negative 1, which is really negative 35. So my answer is going to be negative 51 plus 46i. Alrighty. Oh, here we go. We've done enough of those. Let's do this one. This means 4 minus 3i times 4 minus 3i. We are then going to distribute. We're going to take the 4 times the 4. We are then going to take the 4 times the negative 3i. We're then going to take the negative 3i times the 4, make the negative 3i times the negative 3i. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times negative 3i is negative 12i. Negative 3i times 4 is negative 12i. Negative 3i times negative 3i is a positive 9i to the second power. That gives us 16 minus 24i plus 9 times negative 1. But 9 times negative 1 is negative 9. So that's going to give us 7 minus 24i. All right, over here, we want to get the I out of the denominator because we're not allowed to have i's in the denominator. So we are going to take and we are going to multiply the numerator. That's a little thick, Mrs. Leonard. We're going to multiply the numerator by the conjugate of the denominator, 3 minus 4i. And we are going to multiply the denominator by the conjugate of the denominator, which is 3 minus 4i. And then we are going to do the distributive property with the numerator and the denominator. So when we take 2 times 3, we get 6. And when we take 2 times negative 4i, we get negative 8i. And we take negative 5i times 3, we get negative 15i. And we take negative 5i times negative 4i, we get positive 20i to the second. In the denominator, we get 3 times 3, which is 9. We get positive 4i minus 4i, which is negative 16i squared. If you're wondering what happened to the middles, when you take this times this, you get a negative 12i. And when you take this times this, you get a positive 12i. And they cancel each other out, so I'm not even going to bother to write them down. Okay? I am then going to remember that my numerator is really 6. Negative 8i, negative 15i is negative 23i. And positive 20 times negative 1 is really what I have there. And then in the denominator, I have 9 minus 16 times negative 1 is really what I have there. So what I really have is 6 minus 23i minus 20 and 9 plus 16. Then if I take my real numbers, and my real numbers are 6 and negative 20, and the denominator, I'm going to have negative 14 divided by 25. Then I'm going to take my imaginaries. And my imaginary is negative 23i. And so I have minus 23i, and the denominator is still 25. They have to be separated. They have to be separated because they have to be in the form real number plus imaginary numbers. So you have to separate the fractions apart. When you type this into Canvas, what you are going to load as an answer. So here's your Canvas box. What you're going to load is negative 14 divided by 25 minus 23i divided by 25. That's what you're going to load Canvas with. Let's do one more of those. Alrighty, you ready? Here we go. We are going to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. The conjugate of the denominator is 2 plus i. 2 plus i. Then we're going to distribute. We're going to take 8 times 2, 8 times I, 3i times 2, 3i times I. When I do that, 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times I is 8i. 3i times 2 is 6i. 3i times I is 3i squared. The denominator, I'm going to take 2 times 2. I am going to remember that 2 times positive I and negative I times 2 cancel each other out. And then I'm going to take I times I. So really what I'm doing is 2 times 2 and negative I times I. 2 times 2 is 4. Negative I times I is negative I squared. Then I'm going to combine my numbers and take care of my I squareds. So I have 16 plus 8i and 6i is 14i. And positive 3i squared is really negative 3. And then 4 minus and I squared is really a plus 1. So what I really have is 13/5 plus 14/5 I. And when I put it in Canvas, what I'm going to type into Canvas is 13/5 plus 14I/5. All right, my friends, that is it. If you have any questions, email me or ask me in class. Thank you.